So, so we are now recording. So we will begin our webinar from reports to results using data to drive program results. And today with us, we have three phenomenal presenters who are going to help us understand how to use data to drive program results. We have Dr. Carolyn Zachry, who is currently the State Director and an Education Administrator for the Adult Education Office at the California Department of Education. And she is also the Interim Director for the Career Technical Education Division as well. And her office is responsible for the administration and management of the federal WIOA Title II grants, as well as co-administration of state-funded adult education program. She currently represents she's a current representative of the National Association of State Directors of Adult Education, NASDA. She sits on their board of directors. And outside, she's on the executive board of the California State Chapter of PEO. Also joining us today is Kathleen Porter.
We lost Charisse, but I'll just tell you about myself. I'm with Poway Unified School District. Kathleen Porter, I've been involved in adult education and workforce development in the San Diego area since 1987, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathleen. And we also have with us Carlos Rodriguez. And Carlos Rodriguez is an information technology lead from CASAS. And Carlos, he has said in his information with CASAS today that he is drawing on 25 years of experience in adult education, 18 years of managing large volume data at LA Unified School District, and he serves as program and implementation processing, doing training workshops, and providing high-level technical assistance across diverse projects. Between the three of them, we know that this session will really provide you all of the information that you will need to learn about using data to drive program results and to help you with your planning process for the SIP. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Zachry.
All right, thank you so much, Charisse, and welcome everyone. This session is really, as Charisse said, looking from reports to results, really in preparation for your continuous improvement plan. So today we're going to do an overview. I'm going to be providing a lot of overview. We're going to talk about how we want to reframe our data use and how to use data to really drive action and look at a cycle of using your data as you go through your year, not just for planning for your continuous improvement plan. We're going to talk about SMART goals, and we're going to do a little bit of practice in there. And we are going to get a live demo of the CASAS admin data portal. The goal of this session is that you will be able to articulate at least 3 data points to consider in your continuous improvement plan process, that you're going to practice writing strong SMART goals. You'll consider the next steps to create SMART goals for your agency, and then you'll identify additional resources that you need to support the development of your SIP plan. So we were talking before everyone joined us. We think we're moving into the 5th SIP plan. We've been doing this since the 2020-2023 RFA cycle. And the continuous improvement plan is really designed to reduce the amount of plans that administrators are writing and to really bring this into a more collaborative process within an agency, and to look at this idea of how are you continuously improving, and that this plan doesn't just sit on a shelf, that it's something you look at at least quarterly throughout the year and assess how you're doing towards your SMART goals. So in adult education, if you think about it, you collect a lot of data, right? Whether you're doing it first in ASAP and then turning it into TE or through TE, we have a lot of data. We have fiscal data, we have enrollment data, we have participant data, all of this information. And we have all of these reports that are out there. And we need to find a way to take those, to go beyond those reports, right? When you think about the iceberg, all of those reports are sitting up at the top that we can see. But how can we dive into those reports and into that information to really get into some untapped insights that that data is giving you? So if you think about the WIOA data, right? You have to do it for compliance. And often we react to the data after the fact, right? At the end of the year when we look at our data. And we need to really think about it as an asset and it's a way to help us to be proactive. So we have to shift this thought process that we have from what happened to what are we going to do next, right? So if you think about the continuous improvement plan, that's really where we're wanting you to go, is looking at your data to say, what are you going to do next? How are you going to improve? And we want you to think about this, right? We've really been expanding this over the last 5 years in the SIP. Think about this as multidimensional. Think about enrollment. How do you reach more learners? What do your demographics look like? Do you have more women attending than men? Do you have more individuals that are working, attending your programs than are not working? Who are those students that are persisting? What are their demographics? Is it a certain segment of your population that is making it to beyond the 12 hours into pre and post testing? Who are your students that are achieving their goals? And then also looking at your region and what are the needs within your region. And you want to make these, you want to look at this growth so that it's sustainable and that it's meaningful for your agency to keep you moving along that path. So you think about this data to action cycle, right? You've collected the data. Now you should be getting to the point where you're going to be analyzing your data for patterns and trends. You want to get some questions like, okay, what next? And so what? Make some decisions, take action and implement. That's where you're putting your SIP plan together and turning it in. And then measuring and looking at your impact and refining. That's why we've said in the past that you can move forward goals from prior years, assuming you are looking at their impact and you're refining them as you're going forward. You're not just keeping them stagnant. We're going to improve 10% every year. So looking at that in totality. And then how do you put this into practice so it becomes part of a regular cycle within your agency? So what are those questions you can be asking that are that you can then look at the data to help you make those decisions? What are your leading indicators? What are your feedback loops? This is that idea of making sure that you're bringing your SIP goals and your most current data to a quarterly staff meeting and doing that regular check-in with your data. Starting small, remember we've talked about making sure that your SMART goal is one that you can attain, right? That it's attainable. And the important thing to remember in all of this is that if the goal isn't perfect data, right? We really want you to have clean data, but we really want you to be making better decisions based on your data. And that's the important part of all of this. And so, Kathleen, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Thank you, Dr. Zachry. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's nice to see you all here. So, just as a warm up, we thought we might pose this question to you. What is one data point you might regularly review, but you're not always sure how to act on that? Is there something that's coming to mind that you see often, but maybe you're scratching your head about what do I do with this? Oh, yes, the persistence report. Okay, we can talk a little bit about that. What does that mean? Anybody else? Oh, the attendance report. Thank you. Okay, anybody else have something they're thinking of? Unreported CAPE services. Okay, interesting. So you're thinking of the services that you're providing to your students. I see some thumbs up on some of them. Oh, Virginia says CASAS. Standards met and unmet, persistence report, transition outcomes. So I'm hearkening back to Carolyn's statement that we might be drowning in data, but it's sometimes hard to narrow down those data sources and think about how are we using that data. Oh, yeah, Lisa, thank you. Transition to higher education. So these transition outcomes. So we might be looking at those, but what are we doing with them? So some of these things that you're noticing might be lagging indicators. So these might be things that you report on after actions have already happened, like the transition report, for example. You're going to see that after a student has transitioned. But what we're thinking about are what are those leading indicators? What are the things that we're doing with students that might drive that outcome? And so when we're thinking about this data cycle, that's really what we're trying to look at is what are some of the lead indicators that will drive a particular outcome for our students and our programs. So Carolyn talked about reframing data and really moving beyond maybe looking at data for reports and compliance and thinking about how we're actually using data for program improvement. So as we think about that, we have acknowledging this shared reality that most of us are running reports because we have to. They're not always helping us improve. And so you gave us some examples of reports that you might see frequently, but you're not sure how you're actually using those results. So the shift is how do we use data as a diagnostic tool? Again, a diagnostic tool that might help inform action, not a particular judgment in time. So it's not happening after things have occurred and then you're just making a judgment. It's actually something that you're using to drive action and change outcomes. And I like this one, using data as a conversation starter, not an endpoint. So when you're looking at data, we're asking questions about what are we seeing. So effective continuous improvement plans are going to focus on patterns, the patterns or trends that we're noticing in our data, and are going to elicit questions, not necessarily conclusions. So again, we're thinking more about those leading indicators rather than the lag indicators. So we're looking at things to drive action, not a kind of a forensic report that says what happens at the end of a year. So let's move on. And Carolyn talked about this data to action cycle. So just to re-emphasize this, when you're looking at data, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're looking at our data and we're saying, what is it that we see? We might be starting to question our data. We'll say, hey, this surprises me. I'm not sure what this means. Or why is this so much higher or lower than it was last year? So you're asking questions about what it is that you're seeing. Then we're beginning to analyze. why is this actually happening? What do we think might be driving this? We won't know. It'll just be a hunch at this point. So we're thinking about what might be drivers of what we're observing in our data. And then we're going to act on it. So we're really thinking about, well, if this is our theory, how are we going to test that theory? Or how might we adjust services? And then we can look at our data and see if we're seeing a difference in the data. So when I think about our data and we think about how we're going to align this data for our continuous improvement plans, I kind of put our data into these three different buckets. So access and enrollment. So there's different data that are going to inform you're looking at the access to your program's enrollment, persistence, and attendance. And then our outcomes, our measurable skills gains, completions, and our transitions. And those are all things that you talked about earlier in data or reports that you're running regularly. When we think about access, specifically, what I mean is that maybe we're looking at data and we're noticing some things in our data. So I was talking earlier about, well, we noticed that in Poway, we're serving a lot more women than we are men. And so we might ask ourselves, why is that? Are we not offering programs that are attractive to men? Are we not offering programs at times when men can take courses? One of the things that I know about adult learners is that most of our adult learners who are working have irregular work schedules. So if we have a program that's only offered in the morning or a program that's only offered in the evening, and our students have irregular work schedules, they don't have the ability to take some classes in the morning, some in the evening, we may find that we're serving fewer people that are working, or we may find that we're serving fewer men in those programs. And so those are questions that we can start asking ourselves. So really, I think when we start to look at data, we want to be sure that the continuous improvement plan is citing data and telling sort of this coherent story. And the data start to tell us the why, but the goals are going to tell us how we're going to take action, how we're going to turn that data statement into an actual action. And I'm going to turn things over to Carlos now. Carlos is going to give us a quick tour of how to find some of these data points in the CASAS admin portal. And then we'll come back together and start looking at maybe specific data and how would we turn a data statement into a goal. So Carlos?
Thank you so much, Kathleen. That was a great intro. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, CALPRO. My name is Carlos Rodriguez. I work for CASAS, and something that I'm going to be sharing with you today is the admin portal. But the question comes to big, what exactly is the admin portal? So let me make this smaller. What exactly is the admin portal? Well, the admin portal is in the same location as the teacher portal. And of course, it's driven for administrators or definitely people that like to, look at data. So one of the first things that you will do once you get an account, you will sign in as a teacher administrator. You're going to put in your information for signing in, and voila, you're going to be, signing in. That some of the information that you see right now is because of my level of access. But this is the interface. It's a web-based product made by Casas, and it has a navigator which gives you access to data depending on the amount of access that you have for your information at the federal level, at the state level, consortia, regions, agencies, and of course, I mean, we have a way to make changes to the font, make it bigger, make them smaller. And it gives us the information with some settings in case if we wanted to see it. This is what I'm going to focus today is going to be more at the agency level. So I'm going to use my navigator and I'm just going to jump directly to agencies. And Kathleen, thank you so much for that. Kathleen has been very nice. And she said, like I asked her if I could take advantage and actually use her school. So I'm going to be selecting Poway. And that's going to give me, if you notice, exactly the same level of access to the data that you had at the federal level. So it's just how much you want to narrow down, right? And that means that, like Kathleen mentioned, you have a lot of data out there. So how exactly does the TOPS Enterprise actually and Teacher Portal and Admin Portal actually can help you? Let's just say that we're gonna go to the report card. Because why? Like Sharice mentioned, you put a garbage in, garbage out, right? So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into the report card. And what exactly is the report card? The report card is a tool that is going to give you all the different options that you have in the DIR that actually affect your data, your MSGs, right? And not only that, but it gives you a target. Like for instance, on this one, it gives you a target, a result, and the score. And the targets are actually 15% below or above of what the average for the actual state is. And not only that, like from here, I'm looking at the year 24-25, and I can see, every single quarter how things are improving. But how can that help me? You're gonna ask me, what if I want a chart, and I have things like, let's just say less than 12 hours of instruction. So let me click on that, and then it gives you a visual of that specific information and how exactly does it look the data as it moves through the quarters for the year 24-25. And since this is a web-based application, you can always view it as a PDF in case if you want to keep it. You can print it or you can download it. So what else can you show me? We have a lot of stuff. What if you don't want to see this chronologically? What if you want to see, in reverse, from the fourth quarter all the way to the first, just to see how things are moving. So you have many options, like the basic information, like no gender, no ethnicity, valid pre-test, missing consent, missing phone or email address, things like those. So it will be a good idea for you to peruse. And if this is still not enough, you can always select the tabular data for the report that you have, and then you can use this data, export it, and then you can create your own charts. So that's close enough, for cleaning our data. But we already know how to clean our data. We're actually very good. We have many reports. How exactly does our data look, in terms of CAPE? So we have a CAPE data trends. Okay. So like Kathleen was talking about, it's not necessarily the snapshot that you have right now, 2025. It's actually more like what can I see across the board and how can I analyze this? In the past, probably you will have to go into TE, select each and every one of the years and export your data, focus exactly in which part of the data you wanted to actually make a case, and then take the same data bits from each and every one of the years. That will create an Excel sheet that we can put together. And then, of course, we can create a chart out of that. And then, of course, you can do a PowerPoint after that. The admin portal actually helps you a lot in those things. Let me take a look at the CAPE data trends. This is the CAPE data trends for the year 24-25. I can look as far back as, let's just say, 7 years. And I'm only going to look at quarter four. And you can see that this is going back all the way to 17-18, and it's giving me all the data for total enrollment, based on total enrollment. So I'm going to be showing you the values and graph, and later on, I'm going to show you how to get the tabular data. But on this one of the first things that Kathleen mentioned was access and enrollment. So why don't we go to enrollment, and if you notice this changes. And why does it change? Because you can click on it, and it generates trend data with the numbers for each and every one of those, so you can see how the total enrollment for Power has been for the last 7. And again, you can save this, or you can download it, or you can print it. She also spoke about access, right? and about attendance. Well, participants or students that actually have 12 or more hours of attendance, we can click this, and then we can see how the 12 hours of attendance have actually been for the last few years. So in that way, you can make those decisions based on that. She spoke about access. She spoke about, like the amount of actually male to female ratio and, and how her classes were actually working on. Why don't we do, enrollment by gender? And then we have it over here again for the 7 years with that information. But she mentioned, that she has a really high female population, right? So why don't we turn this off? And then you can focus solely on what that is. Well, she already knows that it's actually, the female population is the biggest. So why don't we see only the female and let's see where, where the valleys and of course the peaks have actually happened for the fourth quarter, throughout the data. That's something that you can do, and you can slice and dice. You can take a look at enrollment and ethnicity. You can take a look at enrollment by Cape group. Like for instance, I can hit this and it's going to give me every single group that we have data in TE. And this is live data, by the way. We're actually looking at some of the information that she's provided us. And I can just emphasize and compare, the 60-year-olds and how they're doing with the 25 to 44 that are actually the biggest population that they have. She also spoke about completions, transitions. You have a plethora of everything here with information, attendance, student outcomes, high school equivalency is achieved, high school diplomas, everything that is beautiful about the Cape Summary Report. You can find it over here, and you can graph it exactly the same way that you did before. Or if you want to take a look at just your ESL program. Okay, since it is the biggest population, we can just go hit the English, as English language learners, hit it, and then we can see how that has been trending for the last 7 years. As you can see, it gives you a lot of freedom, a lot of leverages, so you can click on them and actually emphasize, what you want to see. And if you want to get the data, we can always show them, and we can just see how ESL has been doing with the data attached to it. So in that way you can present it. I've heard great things, that some people are actually using it at the consortium level, definitely at the state level, so this is a great opportunity, a great tool that you can use. Is it enough, for you guys? I barely run, through it today. So, but there's more. CASAS actually provides trainings that are guided, to people that actually want to learn a little bit more. So I'm going to be putting that in the chat. And of course, I mean, if you want tech support, you can always count on CASAS. That's the email. There's an attention, that you can put there to make sure that Oscar takes care of you. Just let me know and let us know, and we'll be there for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. There are a couple of questions, or at least one question right now in the chat that I think you can answer for us. Can we filter ELL and transitions data?
Transition, since it is different, it would be the pivot that still cannot be done, mixing two different areas at the same time too. But you can add actually the divider. Let me see transitions. I think you can change the population that you're looking at. You can change the divider. And let me see. No, it only gives me Cape data, and it doesn't really give me transitions. Doesn't give it transitions yet. But this is just the beginning. If you've seen it, definitely those are great questions. Thank you so much. You can send them over. And of course I will pass them along to see what kind of how can we enhance this tool for you. So thank you so much, Kathleen, for that, and thank you, Nora Vasquez, for the question.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And then, as Carlos said, he's posted some things in the chat where you could get additional information about training to learn how to use this admin data portal. So we're going to kind of move beyond finding data now, and we're going to start talking a little bit more about data analysis, and specifically We'll start with thinking about focusing data. So again, thinking about Carolyn's comment that many of us are drowning in data, but it's really hard to narrow our focus and find things that are actionable. So when we think about our questions and how are we focusing or narrowing that focus, one of the things we want to look at are the patterns that matter most. So I usually think about looking at data in context. And as Carlos showed us, the context could be looking at your own agency's performance year over year. So you can look at trends, but you can also compare yourself to statewide averages. You can compare yourself to like agencies. So when you're looking at your data, you're looking at it in context. And if you can see that the trends for other agencies or the trends statewide are moving in a different direction than your trends, you might want to ask yourself why. That would be maybe a pattern that you would notice that would really matter. Then we want to think about what trends are within our control. So if you're going to start thinking about what am I going to focus on, what are some goals that I can draw from this, you want to be sure that the trends that we're really looking at are things that you're going to be able to influence. I think, of course, is it going to be meaningful for students? So sometimes we'll see goals that might have to do with professional development. But if the measure isn't relating back to how that professional development is going to have an impact on students, that's sometimes where we're missing the link. So I would encourage you to use that question, is this meaningful to students, as one of the really guiding questions when you start to look at what goals you might want to develop. Is it actionable within 1 year? Is this something that we can do and start measuring progress within 1 year? And then, of course, is it aligned to our program priorities? So we'll take a look at some examples next. So I think we're all familiar with the acronym of SMART, but I'm going to take a minute or two to do a deeper dive into these SMART. So we know we're looking for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. Some of you have also heard in earlier webinars from previous years about adding the IE to this goal. So thinking about SMART E goals. And by that, we would say, is it inclusive? Is it equitable? So those are things that we're thinking about when we're setting our goals. So when we dive into what is the S of a SMART goal, it's specific. And so I think what we're talking about here is what exactly are we trying to improve and for whom? And so when we read SMART goals, a common pitfall is maybe using some words like increase, support, or improve, but without saying what or how. So we'll give you some examples of that. But that's when you're developing a SMART goal, make sure that you're really specific by saying, what are you going to improve and for whom? So the next is measurable. And measurable is really, how are you going to know that it's done? So we might read a goal that says, I'm going to increase persistence. But if it doesn't say from what to what, it's not going to be measurable. So we want to be sure that when we're writing these, that it will actually have a numeric target, and we'll know that we succeeded just by reading that SMART goal. And then achievable. So this one is kind of interesting because it doesn't necessarily mean that we're making easy goals. So we want to have something that is a stretch for us, right? We want to improve our programs, but we also want them to be informed. So we're not going to say 100% if 100% isn't really reasonable. So it needs to be informed by the baseline. So if you're talking about improving something, you're going to look at what is the trend prior to this? Where did I end up last year? And what do I think is reasonable if we keep on this trend, this upward trend, to be able to achieve in the next year if we're going to change some of our actions with the intent to improve this outcome? And then relevant, this goes back to, is it meaningful for students? But also, does this goal matter to staff or to system priorities? So a common pitfall with this one is writing goals because they're required, but not necessarily because it's tied to any kind of a student outcome. So when we talk about relevant, that's what we're really looking at. And then, of course, time bound. By when will this improvement occur? So the common pitfall of this one is saying that, oh, this is going to be ongoing. On an ongoing basis, we're going to do X, Y, or Z, because we really want that specificity to include by a certain date that things will be done. And the point of writing a well-written goal is that if you write a goal that has these ingredients, you're more likely to be able to achieve it. Your staff are more likely to understand what it is that you're doing. And I'm going to show you some examples. So if the data statement here is only 62% of ESL students persist beyond 12 hours of instruction. And so let's say that's the data statement. That's what we've observed in our data. We come back, we talk about it with staff. We're asking questions about why might this be. And one of the ideas we want to test is because our students are not receiving early academic or navigational support. So our goal then is going to be that we want to provide that early academic or navigational support, and we're going to measure it. And so I'm going to give you some examples. And this first one is our imperfect SMART goal. And I would like for you to spot what's missing here. If you can just say one thing that you think might be missing in this SMART goal. So it's increase ESL student persistence beyond 12 hours by providing additional support for students. Okay, define support. Thank you, Janice. Suzanne says, yeah, by when? The type of support isn't specific. The percentage increase isn't here. How you're going to do it. There's no date. Specify the support in the time frame. Thank you. And for which students? Thank you, Beth. Yeah, so this particular goal is unfinished. It's not a bad goal. It's a great goal, but it just needs more detail here in order to make it SMART. So it's in process. It's not a SMART goal yet. So here's a smarter goal. Here's a better SMART goal. By June 30th, 2027, increase the percentage of ESL students who persist beyond 12 instructional hours from 62 to 70% by implementing early student outreach and attendance follow-up during the first 4 weeks of enrollment. So you can see the difference here. What are you noticing when you see this particular goal? It's time bound. Thank you, Barbara. What else? It has specific percentages, doesn't it? Yes, thank you. It's a smaller goal, so the supports are going to occur in the first 4 weeks after enrollment. Yes, thank you. It's specific and achievable. It addresses the issues raised in the chat. It's very specific. Yes. It tells you how to do it. Yes. You could call out EL level. Yeah, that's my next question. How could we even strengthen this? How could this be even better? Thank you. So Barbara already noticed maybe EL level. To be clear, this goal would pass. So if you were submitting this goal, it would meet the minimum qualifications. This goal would pass. But it could also be strengthened. What could you add to this goal? Any ideas? If it's too hard to type, you could unmute. Oh, yes, thank you. You could add ESL level 1-2 students or evening student 1-2. Okay, yeah, so you're thinking like Barbara is, like you could be really specific about which ESL students. You could say ESL students in all levels. Thank you, Beth. You could offer a second type of support. Yes. I think we could do a few more things. I'm going to show you what we thought was going to be an even smarter goal. Of course, none of these are really, they're not perfect. So I don't want you to feel like you could model, but I want to just demonstrate that by adding detail to your SMART goals, your goals are getting smarter and smarter. And the test might be that someone brand new to your organization or one of the readers of the SIP plan would know exactly what you were intending to do. So here's a stronger SMART goal. By June 30th, 2027, increase ESL student persistence beyond 12 hours from 62 to 75%. And how are you going to do that? Conducting intentional orientation and goal setting within the first 5 instructional hours, implementing early attendance monitoring and instructor-initiated outreach for students missing 2 consecutive class sessions, providing brief advising or success coaching check-ins during the first 4 weeks of enrollment. Progress will be reviewed quarterly using attendance and persistent reports. So this one is telling you what kinds of lead measures are we going to look at? It's telling us more about who's going to be doing this work. We have when it's going to happen and what are some specific things. Tatiana, I think you're trying to say something. You have your hand raised.
I have a question. Should we all put in the title the goal, or should it be in the steps how to achieve it? Because it seems like it is an overblown goal if we just put it in the goal itself. What are you adding there are the steps. What would you advise how to do that?
I think because we have action plans with our SMART goals, this goal would be, this is what I mean, like this particular goal would pass. And then where you would have that level of detail will be in your action steps. And I will say that all of our plans are going to be read by 2 readers. And so the readers are going to read your goal and they're going to read your action step. But this is the level of specificity, this stronger goal that you'd want to see in the whole step. You'd want to really know what this school was planning to do in order to achieve the goal. So good question, Tatiana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, so one of your questions, Maren, is how much of this might be related to students coming once for a registration and never actually attending the class one day? So that might be when you are looking at data, and maybe you're looking at your students with 12 hours of instruction, that might be a question that you ask, that you and your team determined is something that's actionable. And so in this fictitious example, we said, okay, the data statement was they noticed that they had a high percentage of students that weren't making, that weren't reaching 12 hours of instruction. So that data statement led to the thing that they wanted to test was this whole idea of early interventions around attendance, but yours might be something different. So it's involving your team to look at data and then asking these questions, being really curious, and then imagining, what if we did this? This might affect that outcome. And so you're going to test that with your goal. Does that make sense? Are you with me? So let's talk about the continuous improvement plan process. We're going to do a poll to say, where are you in the process now? Are you identifying performance review teams? Are you scheduling your meetings? Are you gathering data and surveys? Are you analyzing results? Are you already setting your SMART goals? Are you writing action plans? Where are you in this process now? So I think we are, but just about 65% of us have responded. So I'm going to just, let's see, I'll end the poll and share results. So can you see these results? Or Maria, do you need to share the results?
We can
Oh,
see
you can. Okay, good. So yeah, you can see that most of you are at this point of gathering data and surveys. You've already scheduled meetings. Some of you are starting to identify your performance review team, and you still have time. And one of us has already started setting the SMART goals for this year. So between now and when you get to that April 30th date, you've got time to get this done. We're going to encourage you to do this earlier than later. So I'll talk a little bit about that next. But I'm hoping you can just take a second to reflect and think about what do you want to do next? If you can just write yourself a little note, put something on your calendar. What is your next best step? What's one thing you want to be sure that you do next from here? And then for the wrap up and closing, April 30th is the due date. The goals that you're going to be writing for the continuous improvement plan this year are going to be for the 26-27 program year. So even though it's a SIP for 2026 spring, you're writing for next year. You're going to once again have 3 goals that you're writing, and one of those goals must be a technology goal. And we talked about this, the plans, your SIPs are going to be read by at least 2 readers once again. Adele has a rough draft, great. And then for the additional resources, so at this website, you'll find a lot of different resources that can help you in this planning process. So there are some trainings, there are webinars, earlier webinars that have been posted. There's a written guide. There's a number of questions and answers documents that you can take a look at. Dr. Zachry has done a new video for us for this year's continuous improvement plan process. So take a look at those things. We also have just the direct link to Dr. Zachry's video. So if you'd like to watch that, you can get a little bit more information there. And then, so to do, if you haven't already, set up your teams and calendar your meetings right away. Start or continue your student surveys and your teacher surveys. If you can submit your continuous improvement plan early, that's great because your reviewers might be able to provide some early feedback or additions that need to be made. We also have office hours helping people develop. If you want somebody to review your SMART goals before you submit, we're happy to take a look at them. And then more help is available just through OTEM. So I think what I would say is that this is kind of a tortoise activity, not the hare activity. It's slow and steady, winning the race. So doing some thoughtful planning, you're really going to make slow and steady progress on your goals and on your service for students. So just remember it's a process. It's not a destination, it's a process. And you'll just make a habit of reviewing data and asking these questions. And then we have our contact information. If you have any follow-up questions that you wanted to ask one of us, you're welcome to do that. And save the date. This is you, Charisse. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Well, I want to first thank you. And this has been really wonderful. We're very excited about the three of you presenting this webinar. It's very, very informative, and I think that it will prepare all the participants for getting their SIP successfully completed and submitted on time by that April 30th date. We're excited about our next admin forum webinar coming up on March 24th. It will be on resilience in the face of destabilizing change. The presenter is Brigitte Marshall. We had wonderful feedback from a session that she did similar to this for state directors last fall, and we are bringing this to you in California, to our program directors and leaders across the state of California. So please be ready to join. We will have this registration going out to you soon, and it is our opportunity now to get feedback from you about today's webinar. So you can scan the QR code, or the bit.ly link has been placed in the chat there. We'd love to get your feedback on today's webinar and ideas for additional future webinars. Thank you again, Dr. Zachry, Kathleen, and Carlos, for today's wonderful and informative webinar, and to all of the participants for joining us this afternoon. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.